live, you can do it too. So share your stories, because there are probably many people in your lives who don't know that your family was affected by CDH. So we need to make aware. And who knows that, all right, so I hear Kristin. Are you there?
I'm here. I'm here.
Yay! So great to have you here. Yay! All right, so I'm just going to let you go for it. Tell us your story. Tell us the whole enchilada of everything. How you got involved in CDH and what you're doing now.
Okay, so I am the youngest of 5 kids. My parents were married very young, and their 4th child is Christopher, and he was born in 1974 in a local hospital. Back then, you didn't have sonograms or anything. When he was born, he did have so when he was born in our small local hospital, he didn't make any respiratory effort and was kind of whisked away to the nursery. And eventually they did an x-ray and determined that he had CDH. And he was taken to a bigger hospital that was about an hour and a half away in Peoria, Illinois. And they discovered that he did in fact have CDH. In 1974, it was emergency surgery. So they did his surgery, his initial repair. That day, when he was just a couple of hours old, my dad went later with him. My mom had had some complications from delivery, so she didn't get to go and be with him for quite a long time. And the nursery then was a lot different than it is now, so they weren't able to do the things that all the parents take for granted now. So he was in the nursery. He eventually was able to be extubated. He was in room air. He had a lot of trouble eating. And eventually they figured out that he needed surgery again. They thought he possibly had a bowel obstruction. It ends up that he was reherniated, and they took him back to surgery. And he was so sick by that point that he arrested 3 times in surgery and passed away in surgery. And things were very different back then, obviously. I think that they treated him the way that they knew how to then. But I'm really glad that things have changed. So fast forward to a year, almost to the day from when he died, and then I was born. And I grew up knowing about Christopher. He was never, I think in that time, people didn't talk about when babies died, but my family was always very open about him. I grew up with a picture of him outside of my bedroom in the hallway. My parents were always proud of him and that he had been part of our family. He continued to be part of our family. And when I went to kindergarten, my mom, who has stayed home to raise us, went to nursing school. It took her 6 years to finish. She got her bachelor's of science in nursing, and she went to work as a nurse in the very same unit where Christopher was taken care of. She became the very first ECMO coordinator and brought ECMO to Peoria, and worked there until she left to take another kind of nursing job. And then shortly before she left, I also became a nurse in the very same unit where my brother was taken care of. And we worked side by side for about 5 years. And I'm also an ECMO tech. And in the time after she left, we started a CDH follow-up clinic. We had more survivors at that time, and the surgeons and the neonatologists started noticing these kids had a lot of long-term problems. So we started developing some follow-up care for them. At first, it was just, boy, these kids are in the office a lot. What's going on? They have a lot of the same problems. So this was before the AAP came out with their guidelines. So we've been doing our CDH clinic since 2003. We've made it up as we've gone along, but we've really turned it into something special. We have multidisciplinary, truly multidisciplinary. We have a pulmonologist, we have surgeons, we have a pediatric neurodevelopmental psychologist, feeding therapy. They're speech language pathologists. We have physical therapy. We have a dietitian. And then we have the capability to do audiology screenings. We have GI on site. We have cardiology right next door. So part of the thing about when you start to save babies is that those babies grow up and they're not fixed. It's not one and done. You don't just fix the hole and then they're fine. It's a lifetime of watching them grow and figuring out what to do to help them grow. So that's part of what we're working on. And I also work with you, Dawn.
Yes.
And I'm really proud to be able to work on the standards. And that's something that's really important. We need a standard of care so that all the babies, even in the little hospitals who you go to a bigger hospital, we have to get that standardized across the board so that babies who aren't in a big city or in a medium city, they can get the same care, or their doctor can look it up and say, here's what I should do until somebody from a bigger hospital can get here. Because that would have helped my brother. That would have helped other kids.
Definitely. That is...
And then we need to work on the follow-up care.
Yes, we do. Your story is... There's no one like your family. You know that. There's no one in the world like your family. What your mother did, what you continue to do, in your mom's honor for what she started, in your brother's memory. And you're so involved in the families. I see how attached they get to you because they know you get it and they know that you care and they know that you're personally invested in every one of your patients. And that's what makes you so successful. To have you on our medical advisory committee is just, you give a perspective that the other doctors and nurses cannot do, and we so appreciate that. And very often, you're one of the biggest cheerleaders for the families everywhere, not just in Peoria. So we appreciate that, and we appreciate what you do with us. And you and I have many private conversations where we go, let's get this, let's do that, let's make this happen, and I love your enthusiasm, Kristin. You're my kind of person. We're on the same path, and it's great. And the clinic, what you all do for patients, because you said it best. You said many things that were perfectly phrased. It's not one and done. These kids do need follow-up care. There are not enough clinics. There are not enough hospitals know how to take care of these kids. Especially for our children who were born before, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 30, 40 years ago. Things have changed a lot, but we still have a long way to go in the standard of care, the accreditation, and I'm really excited to work with you on that. So is there anything that you would like to tell the parents now that I have a medical professional here who's a part of the CDH family? Can you tell the parents how important it is to not give medical advice on social media, to not take medical advice on social media, and to do their research in a constructive way.
Yes, yes. There's a lot of good information out there. I think that social media is a great tool for support, but it's really hard, and I hate for people to feel like they need to go to a certain place or they're not doing what's right for their baby. Because not everybody can go wherever they want to go.
Right.
And the standard part is that you should be able to go where you are. And you may not be able to get your baby transported somewhere else. You may not be able to deliver at a big hospital. And we have, so we're in Peoria, which is a pretty accessible city. And then we have Chicago. So then if our kids need to go for a bigger surgery, not our CDH kids, luckily they stay with us. But there are some things that we send kids to Chicago for. And that's really hard for families to manage to go there. And it's very stressful. So the stress of having a baby who is going to be sick, figuring out the logistics of going somewhere else, leaving your job, leaving your family, it's going to be a long-term commitment. And if you can do that, that's great. But the people who can't do that, I can't imagine how that would feel. And nobody needs to feel worse about this. I am so proud of our whole community, and I support everybody's research. And the standards and what we all can learn from each other is amazing. And I follow other centers and consider them my mentors, and I think we can all learn from each other, but we all have to support each other and don't make each other feel bad about anything. Every parent's journey is different. Every baby is different. And what works for one person's baby may not work for another person's baby. And truly, every CDH baby is different.
Right.
So you can't predict what one baby is going to come out and do and another baby is going to come out and do.
Right.
Every baby is different when they're born. So I think it's great for us to all hold each other up and say, hey, this worked for my baby. Maybe you could try this if it's a parent thing. But if you need medical advice, I think it's okay for parents to maybe say, hey, this worked for my baby with feedings. Ask your nurse, ask your doctor about X, Y, and Z. But you should always ask.
Absolutely.
Ask your doctors. It's good stuff to ask. And if you're not happy with what they're telling you at the hospital with your doctors, ask more. That's what I say for parents. Ask.
Right.
Just keep asking. Find a nurse, find a doctor, find an APN that you click with, that you trust. Get a core team for your baby. Find somebody that is your person and go to them.
One thing,
and I hope you all find that person.
Absolutely. And I completely agree with everything that you're saying. And one thing that I would like to reiterate while we have someone who runs a CDH clinic here is that very often families who have, let's say, a feeding issue or reflux or something after that they've been discharged, and they see other parents trying medications or formulas or things that they decide to try themselves without consulting their doctors first, without getting medical advice because it worked for another child. And that very often happens on social media or different therapies and that thing. With how important is it that they talk to their doctors before they change anything or do anything that is suggested? Because like you said, everything doesn't work for all the kids. Every child is very different. And it's social media.
For sure.
Go ahead.
And if you have a provider, or if you have somebody that you don't feel like you can ask, then maybe you need to look around for somebody who you do feel like you can ask.
Right.
You can always ask. Talk to your pediatrician, talk to your surgeon, talk to your GI specialist. But don't not talk to anybody. There's always someone to ask. There's dietitians out there, there's speech language pathologists out there, but you know, there's medication interactions. There's a lot of stuff that's out there that is good for CDH kids and any kid, and that's not so great. But it's good, I think, but you need to ask. You know, just bring it up at your next appointment or call the office and say, hey, I saw this. It worked for my friend's child. Is this something that we could try? We have parents that do that, and it may or may not work. And you can always say, let's try it for a week or 2 weeks. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, then maybe it'll put them on the right path to finding what's right. Something that's hard too is that if you try 8 things all at once, I know that it gets super frustrating and you're just desperately trying to find something that's going to help your child. I have been there with, you know, those kids who you're like, okay, what is wrong with this kid and what are we going to do to fix it? And you want to try everything you can. You want to throw everything you have at them, but then you don't know what it was that helped. So you do have to be patient, and I am one of the most impatient people on the planet, but you have to be patient to figure out what it was that helped. So try one thing at a time and, you know, be honest with your providers and find a provider that's a good fit for you. And find a follow-up clinic. Your kids deserve it. They're going to have stuff go on for the rest of their lives. We're getting to have teenagers now, and I'm a baby nurse by trade. So, boy, these teenagers are hard stuff.
Yes.
So I'm really getting an education about what to do with teenagers.
I think everyone
that needs to be addressed for these kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And my own daughter is not a teenager, but when I get there, I hope to have a better understanding. But boy, I walk out of there and say, I'm going back to the babies. This is hard stuff. But they are a different group of kids than they were when they were refluxing, puking, constipated babies.
Right.
So now they're teenagers and they need different support. So we have to pay attention to that as well as, you know, survival in the newborns.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Kristin, I appreciate you being here. We appreciate everything you do, not only for our charity, but for the whole community, for all the kids and the families at your clinic. You are incredible. Please thank your mom for us for all that she did. And thank you. And I will talk to you soon.
Yep. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, so we are going to have the total in just a moment for the top of the hour. Oh, we have the total. Okay, so right now, as of 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we are at $13,053, so we are creeping up there. And hopefully everyone on the West Coast is starting to wake up, get motivated, and we are going to for money. I know that we're talking about many different families and many different stories, and as you hear the stories, I want you to remember that